All right, guys, time to talk a little U.S. men's national team. We'll do a little postmortem of the 1-3 loss to Germany and a quick preview of Tuesday's Ghana game. And to do so, we are joined by Seattle Sounders, U.S. men's national team, and maybe most importantly, Sneaky Fox FC legend, Brett Evans, who, you can speak from a place of gravitas, whereas armchair analysts like me, we don't really have that. So thank you for jumping on. How you doing today, Mr. Evans?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having me on. It is a torrential downpour here in Seattle, as one would expect. So, doing good though, doing good. High school season is in full swing with the girls. We got two league games left, ranked number 6 in the state. So we're trying to make a push for this thing. We won state with the boys in the spring, so we're trying to get the girls to lift that trophy now.
Wow, are you head coach of both teams?
So girls team co-head coach and then the boys team assistant coach, but we kind of shared duties. It's actually another former Sounder, Craig Tomlinson. He played for about a decade for the Sounders beforehand, and so he's the coach of the boys team. Was the coach of the girls team, but yeah, we're kicking in. Actually, we have a girl on our team who is really good. Well, I mean, all the girls are
It
great.
sounds like you got more than one.
Well, yeah, all the girls are great, but we had a freshman come in this year, and dude, the way she strikes a ball is like, it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, you can't teach that.
Yeah.
It's like either you have it or you don't. And she's actually invited to San Diego Wave is starting their academy, and so she'll be invited down to try out and be a part of that, which would be really cool to see the women's team get these academies going and have that next generation come up in a system. So stoked for her, and she's quite the player.
Nice. You're
It's
getting
cool. It's cool to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I knew that you were sort of involved with, grassroots and soccer and everything like that, but I didn't know you were sort of knee deep in it with men's and women's. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we're in this year 4 now for me, so it's been fun to dip in like the coaching realm at that level, but with no pressure, no expectations, right? I don't have to like lose my job and move to the middle of Texas somewhere, or completely start all over again. That's not in the cards for me.
Nice,
No,
nice. You're at the perfect level there. You got the best of all worlds
that's right.
there. All right. Well, from a team that obviously is doing a lot of winning at the moment in a program based on your boys' success in the spring, let's talk about a big fat L that we took over the weekend. So, U.S. men's national team, we stepped it up a little bit, from the Uzbekistan and Omans
Yeah.
of the world. Played Germany, and granted, this is a Germany team that hasn't exactly been lighting the world on fire lately. But at the end of the day, this is still Germany. They still got world-class talent everywhere. They just got a new coach, Julian Nagelsmann. Everybody knows about him. So, we, I guess before we get to the gameplay and everything, let's talk a little bit about the starting 11. I think the two things that a lot of people, were debating before and perhaps after was number one, the midfield, right? We had Gio Reyna at the 10, essentially, and Weston McKennie and Musa kind of behind him a little bit, and then the center back pairing, Chris Richards and Tim Ream were the starting center backs. You obviously know a lot about center backs. Maybe we'll start there. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. I think Tim is obviously fantastic for in the World Cup, and I thought that he has been very good for Fulham. And there's no when you look at the resume, he deserves to be there, right? But I think for some reason at that next level, I think when he's at Fulham, I think that the team that's built around him is much different than a U.S. men's national team. I think you see a lot of veteran players on that Fulham squad, mixed in with some high quality international players. And I think that they carry the load for him and allow him to, sometimes make mistakes, but sometimes he's able to make some brilliant plays in the Prem. And that's not a slouch. He is not a slouch player. He deserves to be there. I just think that the team is set up very different. And I think that he is relied on too much in that back line to ultimately lead that team with what is still a really young squad. And I think that we'll talk about this squad being really young until the next cycle is pretty much over. And I said this last time before we came on, before that last World Cup, was this is a really young team. And I think that they performed well at the World Cup, but they still needed another 4 years. And I think even the guys in front of him in McKinney and Eunice, I think they're still young players. And I think if we had, three of the four center backs that are a bit more established and savvy and real game winners that I think you can like make those mistakes tactically and positionally in the midfield and not get punished. But I think what you saw in this game was if you let your guard down against a really good team, and yes, you're athletic and yes, you've got some experience, but I think at the end of the day, experience and that physical prowess can negate some of those mistakes. But it showed that in the second half, Germany was able to capitalize on that. So I think Tim is a fantastic player, and I think that he deserves to be there. I think that if you asked him the question, he would want more veteran players around him to kind of solidify the US's back line. And I think that we're still, a little bit, especially if you're playing next to Dest. I think that is a huge question mark. I think early on when you look at the Sounders, you had DeAndre at a right back position, and then you had Chad Marshall next to him, and it was still a question of how is he going to kind of fit in with a veteran player, and even guys that played center back next to him before that was you're constantly having to pull in the reins, and it gets really difficult in an international game if you're going to continuously have to tell the person in front of you, to the right of you, the right-sided, fullback and the left back, and give information up the field against a really good team that is Germany. And so as good as these kids are technically, I still think tactically and, positionally that there's still a lot to figure out there.
I got some questions on that. You hear a lot of people talking about sort of Gregg and, did he get out coach? Maybe we'll hold off on that though. I think we're going to get into
Sure.
that quite a bit in just a minute. Now the midfield with Gio, which was great to see, right? Everybody's sort of, is he going to start? Is he going to come in late? Because obviously he's going to be on a minutes watch. He only played like about 30 or something, 45, I guess. But which is more than he's played for Dortmund since he came back, all in total. But what'd you think about that? Gio up at the 10, obviously the Weah and Pulisic on the wings, and Balogun was kind of expected, but Gio at the 10, and then Musa and McKennie behind him. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think Gio deserves to be there, and I think that he will. When he's healthy, he's fantastic, and he's shown that for Dortmund as well. Now, can he just stay healthy enough to get a run of 20, 25 games, or even just a whole season under his belt? And that's going to do wonders for his confidence because he's clearly shown that he's a kid that needs constant feedback, and it's got to be positive. And can you imagine being a player that's at a massive club like Dortmund and the expectations that are on you, and then getting injured at pivotal moments all throughout your career so far, right? It was different for Christian because Christian just stays healthy and he can play. It seems like any league in the world, any position he can play pretty much better than anyone, but he stayed healthy, and that's what allowed him to progress as a player. And I think for Gio, he's in a spot right now where he's kind of getting to that age where it's if he picks up another 4 or 5 more injuries, that's a loss of another 2 or 3 seasons. And now he's looking at mid-20s, and you're asking questions of like, okay, do I need to go to a different league that doesn't have the same load as the Bundesliga? Do I need to come back to the States to get my feet wet and really prove myself and be the best player on the field? And I think it's smart. And as a player, from a player's mindset, I would love to start a game over coming in at halftime 10 out of 10. Because it's the mindset of it that sets you up for success, right? You're training with the first team throughout the week. You have that expectation that I'm going to be in the lineup. So it's almost, the game is obviously massively mental, but for a player like that to get on the right track, that can set him up for hopefully some success moving forward. Because you get into training for the week before, and then you're in the team meal all together, and you're just kind of more focused and in tune. And I think when he was with the team in the World Cup, he was checked out when he knew that he wasn't starting. So clearly he's a player that Gregg's now said, okay, this is how we're going to handle this situation. And if he comes into camp, we're going to start him in a friendly and give him 45 minutes. And I think it's really smart because I could tell you right now, Gio is stoked on starting that game, right? It can give a kid all the confidence in the world to say, okay, I was out of the picture. I've learned from a little bit. Yeah, I'm coming off injury, but I'm still in this team. And then you go through the warm-ups during the game, you get your, typical routine of starting a game instead of sitting on the bench for 45 minutes playing 5v2, which sucks. And then you got to be up doing some laps, and it's just not the same, mentality stepping into that game. So I was happy to see him out there, and I think that he's only going to progress if he can stay healthy, and that's the biggest question mark for me. But when I think of McKinney, I think of he's a hard nosed defender. He can play that position, but then he goes to his club team and he's playing out wide.
Mhm.
And I've watched all the breakdowns. I've watched some of the games from McKinney, and I think he's another player that athletically can get away with just about anything and play in any position because he's big, he's strong, he's powerful. And the question is for him is like, where does he want to play?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is Juventus gonna change formation? Are they gonna try to find the best spot for him? Is he a filler out wide for them right now? But I just sometimes when I watch him play, it's just a little bit slow. And because he is so athletic, he can make mistakes and then he can recover really quickly. But when I watch, especially the first goal, dropping back and stepping back into a center back role to make a back line of five, I don't know if that's tactically what Gregg wants to do. I would imagine no. If I'm both the center backs, I'm saying, I don't want you in my space. You're supposed to be in front of me, providing cover in front so that if anything breaks down, a ball spills out on top of the box, like you need to be there. And so I think Tim and, Richards, I think that they'd be asking those questions too, that they want someone in front of them that's just going to stay there. Let us defend in a back four. It's fine. We don't need you to cover us in a game against Germany. Like, we just need to play positionally sound and negate some of those mistakes. And I think you even saw it on a couple plays after that is, he's just dropping back too deep. And maybe that's just a matter of, he thinks that he has to provide cover against a really good team. But at the end of the day, you train on something for 5 or 6 days and then you drop back in a back line of 5 and everyone's like, what are you doing back here? And so, yeah, I think there's still a lot to play with there. And I think against Ghana's going to be a free flowing team and they're going to provide some, Mexico gets a result against Ghana, which was surprising to me after Mexico's, recent performances.
Yeah.
But, Ghana's going to provide some free flowing play that's going to absolutely require the U.S. team, if they want a result, to be positionally sound and trust that guys can do the job, no matter who the center backs are and no matter who the team is.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing there is like Tyler Adams didn't play, right? If he's in there, that probably changes everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Isn't
that crazy how one guy can change, the way a team plays, even at that level?
That's like is he the most important? Is he the best player? Who knows? There's obviously different arguments there, but his position and who can fill that role, he's kind of like the most indispensable almost.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Christian Roldan with the Sounders, like he's not the best player on the field. Like you would take Christian over, Adams any day of the week, right? But Christian Pulisic, not Christian Roldan over Tyler Adams. But he might be the most important player on the field for the Sounders in the way that they play. And so I think that is Tyler. I think the way that he plays that game and the way that Gregg wants to play, I think he fits that role perfectly in how, because you'll never see Tyler drop back into a back five. Positionally, he's a better player than Weston. And so, yeah, if he's healthy, I think that changes the game quite a bit for them. But, rarely are you going to see a team that's 100% healthy all the time. And so you got to have guys that can step in and get a result.
It goes doubly so for this team. We've never had, I can't even remember the last time we had a fully healthy 11 with, Pulisic and Gio and Weah and everybody. I'm sure it happened at some point, but I can't quite remember it. Now let's talk about how this game played out. So, I thought we came out, look kind of, look decent. We were going at them. They were coming at us. Fair enough. But, we had possession. We were making runs. Pulisic had several looks, scored one of them. One of them obviously was called offsides. A lot of disagreement about that. It kind of sounds like he was. I actually never saw a replay that showed one way or the other. Did you?
I mean, the one replay I saw was at an angle, so it's hard to tell. But with all of our technology, it's surprising that they don't use it in those games. But it's, it's a friendly at the end of the day. But honestly, like that little bit can change the result of a game. We might be talking about a lopsided win for the US within 5 minutes if, if we score that first goal and we pile on a second. And so those do change, the result of a game. And that's why he's up there. It was a great ball from Weston, right? That recognition of, hey, we're gonna test the team and get in behind, and that's something I'd like to see more from this squad. It's something I'd like to see more from every team, is really testing the back line, and if you have the speed to do it, why not? Every once in a while, mixing up that play. But like you said, first half, I think the U.S. came out strong and kind of played the way that we wanted to play.
Mhm.
Didn't get caught too many times in transition, except at the end of the end of the first half, and then the second half, things just kind of looked like it kind of fell apart a little bit. Got complacent, got a little bit scared, and Germany smelt that and piled it on. And they're a good team. I mean, at the end of the day, those players are playing at the biggest leagues. Everyone is playing at the biggest teams in the world, and they showed why, even with some lackluster performances as of late, that they're still a top team in the world.
I'll be interested to see how they come away from that Mexico game. I mean, I hope
Yeah, that's
they
going to be a good one.
I
This
hope they
they
stop them.
smack them.
Please,
Yeah,
please give us a
yeah,
little bit of shit talking ability here. So we scored the first one. Could have been two, as you mentioned, but we scored the first one. What a beauty by Pulisic, by the way.
yeah. It was
That was
unreal.
just
But
lovely.
this is where it's tough for me, because Weston kind of starts that play and the ball comes out wide and he's shifted all the way out wide once again. But then that's that calmness that not a lot of players have, to just in that moment put his foot on the ball and wait for a play to develop and make the right pass and a quick interchange. And then all of a sudden, he splits two defenders and then a third top of the box and picks out top bins. And you kind of just shake your head because you don't see it that often. And every person in the stands was erupting at that point. It's just a world class goal, like simply as you can put it. You just don't see it often, and to see him continually develop and be able to do that in high pressure games, he's doing it with AC Milan. And you ask the question, like, what can't he do at this point, right? Like, where would he go in the world that he wouldn't have success? That's how good he is right now, and I think he's playing with supreme confidence, and he's lights out, man. I think I asked a lot of questions early, but I always had to remind myself that he was 18, and his development and progression has been just unreal. The way that he moves and his balance on the ball is, I mean, it's closer to Landon than any other player, I think. And it's just really, really fun to watch.
Tongue-in-cheek answer to if there's anywhere he couldn't go to have success, it'd be that clown show that is Chelsea right now. But
Well, yeah,
we live
everyone's
that
struggling to have success there, even the players that they have. So
right. We
I
live.
honestly, I'd like to see him like take a chance after the next World Cup cycle and go to like Sao Paulo FC and go to Brazil. Like I just think that would be awesome for an American player to go down there to like a historic club, and do it at a team. I mean, they just won a championship down there, and you look at that roster, and they're just like Brazilian heavy. And if he could go down there and just ball, I think that would be so sick. There's something about Brazilian soccer that I think like lights a fire under everyone, and they just love to watch it all the time. And I think he could do it. It's that size, it's that style, and I think like his game would go to the next level, even if he only spent like 2 years down there.
I
I
love
think
it.
that's my dream for him.
That we'll start working on that now. We'll start lay a
We'll
little
put it out there.
foundation, lay a foundation. We'll get them there
Yeah,
eventually. So you mentioned basically, Gundogan got an equalizer. I think it's the 39th minute, so it was about
yeah,
12 minutes after the first goal. And then, it actually felt like from then on, Germany was kind of, they weren't going through the motions by any means. It just felt like they took over the game
yeah.
and we just could not get it back. Second half made, I think, one change. Luca de la Torre came in at halftime for Gio. Some other, subs in the 60 something minute, but I believe that was after, Germany had scored two goals in quick succession in, I think, 58th and 61st. And basically they just cruised to a 3-1 win. And that second half, it just felt like it was, that you can talk about tale of two halves. And it really was, that sort of game. What stands out? about this performance. You know, a 3-1 loss to a quality opponent where we played well with a very strong squad in the first half. You know, the team made a couple changes in the second half. It just didn't look the same, didn't feel the same. What do you come away thinking?
Yeah, well, I after this game, and anytime you see Germany, or actually anytime you see the U.S. play a team that you've played before, it brings back memories, and then you start to go over in your head, like, okay, who played on that day? What was the result? How did the team get the result? So we played Germany at RFK and won 4-3, right, in that 4-3 game. And I've never been more nervous than to, play a game than that one. To play in a packed out 4th of July game, it was, 90 degrees. But then, you start to run over the roster, and it was, we were all pretty much 28 years old, right? I'm playing next to Omar, Zusi's in front of me, Josie's on the field, Clint's on the field, Michael's on the field. And you kind of run down the roster. And we've talked about this so many times before, but I want to touch on it again, is that, it's sometimes there's that like age difference that makes you a little bit more of a savvy player, right? And Germany at the time was a top team, and you end up getting a result at 4-3. And then, a couple of years later, we go to Europe and we play, Holland, and we win 4-3 again in Ajax of Amsterdam Stadium. And then we go into Cologne and we win 2-1 against Germany. And so we have the ability to do it. It's just a matter of getting the job done on the field. And, sometimes it's more of a mentality than anything. And, I think it was like the 80th minute, and we were under the gun against Germany, and Omar was next to me as I was playing right back. He was playing center back. And I was like, dude, I don't think I can go another 10 minutes. And he was like, fucking suck it up, dude. We got to get through this game. We have to win this game. We have to win this game. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we buckled down, and we just got the result. Was it the most pretty thing? No. But at the end of the day, you look back and it's a 4-3 win, and it's one that you remember forever. And then you go into Germany. I played the second half, and end up getting a result there. And Bobby Wood scores a fantastic goal, and you get out of there with a 2-1 result, and that's one that you remember. So you want to walk away from these games with something to remember. And I think the only thing they're going to take away from this is Christian's goal. I mean, I don't think there's too many positives that really the organization can take away from this one and say, okay, yeah, we progressed in these areas, right? We had 10 successful crosses in a half. We had, 5 block shots. We defended really well. I don't think you can say that about this game. I really don't. And so I think it's disappointing in that fact, right? As a coach, you want to be able to say, and I listened to his press conference, and it was like, oh, we defended well in moments. Okay, great. But did you get the result? No. And so you have to ask questions at that point then. Like, what are we taking away from these games that is going to give us confidence moving forward? Sometimes it's just getting a result that says, okay, we got a result. We can still work on these things. But this game, we didn't get the result, and we still need to work on X, Y, and Z, right? Free flowing attack, positionally better, right? Defending better, not allowing Gundogan to pick up a ball, 35 yards on the wing and come all the way inside, and no one steps to him, and somehow, he finishes that ball. And so, it's a tough one for me to swallow, just disjointed, and still a lot for this group to work on. And how long are we going to talk about potential for? Right? How many more friendlies are we going to talk about? Okay, the potential's there. He's showing signs, but until you start getting results consistently, the proof is in the pudding, I guess.
Sure. And so that leads to a question I got from several different people on Instagram, which I'll try and work in here and there. This one, Andy Scarzillo was, and some other people probably sent it. Why can't, so this is in relation to the fact you just mentioned, like the US team has played and beaten some good teams. Germany twice, you just mentioned, Netherlands. Why is it that Gregg's teams have had such trouble competing with this upper echelon type team? If you take away Mexico, the record against teams in the top, whatever, top 15, 20 is not great. Yep. What is it? Why are we not competing with them yet? Is it still just a young squad? That's it? That's sort of the excuse or the reason we're given?
Well, I can't figure out any other excuse. I mean, the only other thing would be that he's being outcoached.
Uh-huh.
I thought I saw something about their record against top 10 teams or top 20 maybe is
Yeah.
like 500 and five draws or something, 3-3-5 or something like that, maybe. But
Must.
two of those
Yeah.
were against Mexico, so only one win against a top 10 team. Yeah, so at the end of the day, if we're going to say that all these players are world class, then where does the buck stop? Right? It has to be with coaching and tactics and how we're going to play. I mean, if you consistently have guys starting for Champions League teams and you bring them together as a group and they're successful and they're playing and they're doing well, right? Serie A teams, you can run down the list. We all know of these guys that are playing at top teams. Then it is coaching. And is it time? You know, we talked about this last time. Was it time to rehire Gregg? But everyone knows that that was just what was going to happen. And we could ask questions of why and is it the right decision? Yes, but it was what we were dealt with.
Mhm.
And so now I think it's time for reflection to say, okay, the proof is in the pudding. And I would hope that US soccer is asking these questions too. Like, hey, Gregg, let's run through these and figure out why we're not getting results here, here, and here, and here against these top quality teams. Um, I, I still bank on the fact that it's still a pretty young squad, but you're playing week in, week out against the players that you're playing against, you know, in every league are top players. So I think the buck stops with coaching at this point. And you know it's going to take a lot for this team to overcome that hump. And I'm just tired of playing, you know, the national teams that are, you know, ranked 20 to 50. I think if we're going to try and get the most, then Gregg has to be like, we have to play the best in the world consistently. I don't, you know, at the end of the day, that's the only way that we're going to learn. We can't just sit here and get results just so I can keep my job. Like my job is to make this team as good as possible and to play the best in the world. If I'm the coach, like I'm willing to sacrifice that. I don't need to be a coach for 8 years. Give me 2 years, and if I can prove it that I can get results against top quality teams, then okay, then we're off and running, and the team's playing good, right? Not just getting results, but the team's playing good too. So I think yes, to answer that question bluntly, I think it's at this point it has to be coaching.
And so, given the way we played, think back to the way that you were coached to go out there against Germany in the games that you played against them, and then the way that we went out there on Saturday. It seemed like, you know, we played in the way that like we want to play, right? We want to be expansive. We want to pass the ball around. We want to go at them, and we did, at least for, you know, a half hour, 45 minutes. So in the second half, we kind of got, you know, taken to the cleaners. Did Gregg get out coached?
Yeah, I think at that point, I also think there's something about it's clear that you know there was an adjustment made at halftime, and I don't know what happened in the Germany locker room. I don't know if they were just like, all right, catch our breath. We didn't expect them to come out and move us like they did. Let's change one or two things, and I couldn't really pick out what it was, but something changed. They just kept it very simple. Germany did, and they drew out our defensive midfielders out wide, and then they would overload the middle of the pitch. And that's how the second two goals happened in the second half was really just moving players out of position. And so, yeah, I think that is a coaching tactic, and that's why there is a halftime is to make small adjustments. And at that level, all it takes is one or two things to be said at halftime, and it can completely flip a game on its head and change the course of an outcome. I would imagine that at halftime, Gregg was saying, "Okay, we're doing well. Let's just keep doing things the same, right? Don't stop what you're doing. Let's keep playing." And I don't know. I'd be interested to see if anyone. I don't think anyone in the press conference asked, like, "Hey, what'd you tell the group at halftime?" And that should be shared knowledge
Mm-hmm.
because we want to know, right? And I think that it's fair that we should have that information too, or at least be able to ask that question because I think that's an important one. What changed at halftime that you said that the team came out a little bit timid? Was it pressure from Germany pressuring higher up the field? Was it just simply, the Germany coach saying, hey, we want to win all of our 50-50s and make them play backwards, right? We don't have to win the ball every single time, but as long as you make them play backwards, then we're good. And I think Germany did a good job of, these small tactical adjustments at halftime.
Now, the easy sort of thought that I had when you were talking about that, which makes total sense, sort of something changed. The big change for us was no Morena. right?
Yeah.
So Reina was off the field. I'm a big fan of De La Torre.
Okay.
Like I think he's playing. I know he's playing great in La Liga this season when he's not getting his nose bashed in.
Yeah.
But Reina is an incredible talent. So
Rain is bigger, right?
yeah,
He occupies more space.
yeah.
De La Torre is not a big player. He's a little bit more savvy, so yeah, he's going to have more success in La Liga than playing against Germany, right? That's why he went to that league. He didn't go to the Bundesliga to get smashed every single weekend. He went to a very technical league. So if you're going to line up against Germany, you better never lose the ball, and you better find pockets as a number 10 that no other player can see. Otherwise, physical players from Germany are going to eat you up. And so I think that Gio provides that physical prowess that is necessary to play, because it makes a defender think once or twice, like, okay, if I step here, he might be able to spin me because he is a little bit bigger, right? Like those are all things that go, calculations that go through a player's head when they're playing on the field and who they're playing against, right? If I'm playing against Fernando Adi, I cannot get into a physical battle with him because he's going to destroy me every time. But if it's a guy like Rudy, when he played at Houston, I could do it all the time because he was smaller than I was, so I could physically manhandle. So all these little things change the course of a game every single time. And it's about matchups at the end of the day too. So starting Gio is, a tactical decision as well. And then taking him off, Germany's like, oh, okay, let's press. If I'm a center back, I'm saying, hey, press every single time. Make him make a mistake. Play physical. Make him play backwards. Make him play scared, right? And I don't think you saw the best out of him in that second half.
Somebody actually asked that exact same question. It was Justin Lowe. How did you feel about our ability to play out against a strong press? And should we be doing that? What do you think?
Well, I mean, any team in the world, save for, Barcelona, has to mix up their play. And, Fulham plays out of the back a little bit, but they're more of a, mid-table Prem team that's going to, smash the ball and recover. But you have to mix it up at some point. And as soon as Germany smells that, the US is going to continue in the second half to try and play out of the back, I'm just stepping my line higher and higher and higher. I'm pushing every player as high as we can to make them make a mistake. And my hope is that at some point, someone puts their foot on the ball and takes charge and says, okay, fuck, this is not working. We're going to go long for the next 10 minutes. Christian, whoever it is up top, be expecting these balls over the top. And we're going to try to pin them in and make them play out of the back. And we're going to get our line high because we need a breath, right? But no one on that team is putting their foot on the ball and making tactical decisions within the game. And I think that that's the next level. I think if you smell something in the game, you can't just look over to Gregg and Gregg's like, keep playing out of the back, keep playing, right? Someone, whether it's the goalkeeper, has to put their foot on it, everyone get up, and we're going to smash it long, and we're going to fight for second balls for the next 10, 15 minutes. Now, it might not be the way we're going to play the whole second half, but all it takes is one time to win a 50-50, recover the ball, and keep the ball for 15, 20 passes. Give everyone a breath, get organized, and move Germany, because that they are going to be positionally perfect almost all the time. Right? Those guys don't make the wrong decision. So it's your job to try and force them to get them out of position. So yeah, at some point you have to mix up your play. Like I said, and even Busquets mixes up his play too. He'll play 6 or 7 short passes, and then all of a sudden you go to pressure him thinking he's going to make a short pass, and everyone steps and he pings one over the back line. Right? How many times do we see that in the second half?
Yeah, not at all.
Not many.
Yeah, that's what, when people criticize Gregg, that's the type of thing that I always feel like they criticize him for a lot of things, right? But one of the ones that I think they probably have has some merit is that he does seem so set in his ways and the structure and the strategy that he wants to impart on this team, and he doesn't seem to have much flexibility or a willingness, as you said, to switch it up for 10 or 15 minutes and get him off your ass, push him back a little bit. It just seems like that's one thing that Gregg lacks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty rigid in how he wants to play, and I get it. MLS coaches are like that too. Schmetz is often like that, and when the team is feeling good and playing good, he'll say, we're going to play the same way away from home that we are at home. And if you look back on the Sounders season this year, St. Louis was off and running, right? Everyone thought that St. Louis was going to blow everyone out of the water in the West. And the Sounders continually played the same way through the middle course of the season, missing players. Instead of playing five in the back and getting a tie, right, somewhere in the course of that season would actually have meant, with the results at the end of the season, that if the Sounders had won their previous game, that they were only 3 points behind St. Louis going into St. Louis on decision day,
Yeah.
right? And so at some point, you must mix up your play and get the result, because these things can all add, especially if you're a national team coach. You're built on results, right? And I get it. You want to play the way you want to play because it's a friendly game, and you want to ultimately be able to play and dictate pace and play against lesser teams in our division, whatever you want to call it, in CONCACAF. And so there are strategies that he's thinking about, like, okay, if we can do it against Germany, yeah, we might make a couple mistakes, but when we go to play Honduras in Honduras, and we go to play El Salvador in El Salvador, whoever the team is, that we're going to be able to do the job no matter what. But yeah, when I look back at my national team career, if I had lost those 2 games against Germany but played amazing soccer, I'm not thinking about that. Yeah. I'm thinking about the wins that I had. Like, that's why you play the games, fucking win the game. Right? Even if it is ugly for 10 or 15, 20 minutes, like, who cares? You win the game against one of the best most historic teams that's ever played the game. Like, that's a notch on the belt at the end of the day.
Yeah. We certainly did not get a notch this weekend.
No.
Quickly, before we sort of look at Ghana, letter grade for the players overall.
I mean, we do take a step back and realize that they're playing against, a top 10 team in the world, team that's no slouch, a new coach. Also, that has an effect on a squad. Like, okay, we're bringing a new coach. We have this life. We have this, everyone wants to make an impact and show that they belong. And so if you take everything into consideration, I mean, I'll give them, a B minus in that game. I think that's pretty fair. I don't think it was, a tragic loss. When you look at the defending on the goals, one thing can make a difference, that, the ball doesn't go in the back of the net. And so I think it was more, disorganized than anything defensively. And I think that they'll watch it and be like, what was I doing in that situation? Why did I drop into a back five? Why did I step when I know that he's left-footed? Why didn't I show him down the line to his right foot? This guy we watch every single week on TV, and now I'm going to show him inside, right? And little tiny things that they'll want back after that one. So I don't think it was like calamitous, but still definitely room to improve for sure.
I was thinking more C plus, but
Sure.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Now, letter grade for Berhalter and the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think this squad can always, this coaching group squad can always do better. I'll give them a C for that game. I just didn't see too much out of coaching changes tactically on the side, where he was able to see what they needed to do. And maybe he did, but wasn't able to relay the message appropriately, or, the guys that came on the field relay what they were really supposed to do. So yeah, I'll give him a C.
I agree with that. I think that, the early, first of all, the starting 11, and certainly no problems with that. I thought that they played really well in the first half, and, obviously the wheels fell off, but this was Germany. So I'd say C. That's fair for me. Okay, let's look ahead now. So, the 2 obvious questions, both of them we got from several people on Instagram. Let's see. Let's start with the starting 11. Any changes? Seth Giras asked this. Would you make any changes to the starting 11 for the Ghana game?
Man, I don't know about this one. I just think sometimes it's about consistency. And I think when you get into trouble is when you start to change lineups within a camp. You can always make subs, right? I think you have to, at this point, keep things pretty consistent, unless there's someone that you really, really want to see that you haven't seen before, which I'm not sure that that's really the case, especially defensively. I think if they patch up things defensively, stay more organized in the central, part of the pitch, that they can get a result against a Ghana side that is, pretty good. And that they will cause problems, and they have in the past for the US. I think defensively, there's still, some questions for me. And I'm just not sure who jumps in there to really make a difference. Maybe you put in Carter Vickers as a center back for a more
Mhm.
physical presence and a little bit more calm. I mean, he's playing minutes at Celtic. He's proven himself to be a top quality player. So maybe you give him a go next to Tim. Uh, and then really it's up to Tim to keep Dest, interested in the game and playing simple and, defending well. And I think that will lead to success for this group. I don't think there's too many changes that this group can make against a Ghana side that would, you know, really be game changers.
Yeah, there were two sort of questions in my mind. Number one, basically there were disappointments from the Germany game, specific disappointments that I was wondering if is there some way to sort of change things up that would sort of obviate them in the Ghana game. Number one, Dest defensively, just he wasn't really. It didn't seem like he was plugged in defensively in that game. I know he was trying to make things happen going forward, and he wasn't. He was by far not the only one, sort of in the back, who
Yeah.
it just seemed like they were kind of conservative, cautious. They weren't throwing tackles in. There was that goal that who scored it? I think it was Musiala who eventually scored it. The one where Matt Turner came in. It was kind of a one-on-one. He didn't foul the German player, which actually I
Yeah.
thought he did a pretty good job. But then oh wait, no, I'm actually confusing the two goals now. I am.
The final goal was, you're talking about the one that came from a wide position to start, and then it was just kind of
Yes, and it was
calamitous
it
on
was
that
it
one.
was two players. Wes McKennie had a chance to go in on a challenge. Tim Ream
Right.
had a chance to go in on a challenge. Neither of them went in very hard, especially Ream, and then it just took a bad deflection for us.
Well, it took a deflection off the desk because he's doing half-ass defending.
Yeah,
So
basically.
he
There was a
basically he
lot of that,
basically
is basically what I was
stands
thinking.
there and throws his foot back. It takes a deflection off his foot, ball bounces up, and they get unlucky with a couple bounces. But yeah, a lot of questions of just keeping your feet and defending like a defender, right? It's life or death in there. And we talked about this before, but Des reminds me of Fabian Johnson in his ability that he's so gifted technically and he's fast and he's athletic, but sometimes he would just lose it in a game and he would become disinterested in the game for some reason. So where does that motivation come from? I don't think he's a player that you can be like, okay, sit on the bench, because I'm not sure that he wears the badge on his shirt as much as other players do, right? Some people are willing to die for that badge. I don't think he's one of those players. I think he's happy to be there. And if he didn't get called in again, he'd be like, okay, I'll play for my club and I'm good. I could be wrong, but when I watch him play, it seems like he loses a little bit of that fire sometimes. And yeah, it's a friendly. And yeah, I'm comfortable at my club team, but don't you want to show the best of you every single time you want to play? And if you make a defensive stop, you should be high-fiving and stoked on that. I just don't see it sometimes from him.
Maybe we need Ream to just get all up in his ass and
He should.
keep him
Yeah,
plugged in.
I
There was
would.
the
Wake up,
second
man.
the second disappointment from that Germany game was Balogun was nowhere to be found for a lot of that game. And Pepe came in later, and I don't think, he wasn't really either. So I've certainly seen a lot of people suggest, oh, maybe Pepe starts in this game. I don't really care whether Balogun or Pepe starts, but we need to get our nine involved a hell of a lot more than we did against Germany.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just looking for through balls, if that's,
Yeah.
different
I mean,
mindset. I don't know. Is there?
yeah, Aronson can play as a number 9. He plays a bit more withdrawn, but if we're not going to stretch defenses, then why not bring someone who's technically gifted like Brendan and let him play up there and just link up and be a provider and let the other two outside midfielders make those runs in behind, right? It's got to be one or the other. They can't all show for the ball at the same time, right? It can't just be everyone wants to play to feet. As soon as one shows, the other two have to go, right? Like those are the simple principles. And I don't think you're seeing it enough, or the willingness to take those chances in and behind. And a guy like Brendan, I think he's savvy enough and technically gifted enough that he can, his movement is a little bit different than the other guys. And so he could provide that, but I just don't see Gregg, starting him up top. And Pepe's a guy that I just don't see him as a super sub either. I mean, he's 20 years old. He's a guy that is still also, I think all of our guys are these guys that want to start games versus, being willing to come off the bench and just provide and get into a game. I think that comes with playing, 150, 200 games in your careers. Okay, I could step in with 15 minutes left and I know my job and I can do it, right? I still think some of these guys are like waiting to get into a game before they make an impact. And maybe that's what we're missing, is that, kind of veteran presence to come off the bench. Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's two sides to everything, right? And the fact we're the youngest team and we've got all this potential, that means we don't have the experience. We don't have that type of guy to come off the bench. Any sort of along those lines, any big strategic or tactical changes you'd like to see against Ghana?
No, I just I just hate when teams drop into a back five defensively. I just think it disorganizes more than it provides defensive cover. And so if we're going to play 4-3-3, we have to keep shape. There's no use in McKinney leaving his position to help out on the back line. I know he wants to help. I know he wants to provide cover, but sometimes when you play four in the back, right, and you're not expecting someone to drop back, it just ruins things spatially, right? We all have peripheral vision, and when I think someone should be there and they're not, then that messes me up. And when I think someone's there or not there and I need them there, it messes me up too. So I just want to see positionally staying aware and staying more disciplined. And I think if you just 4-3-3 is there to provide cover in the midfield and make things go out wide, right? And we saw that pretty much all three goals came from wide areas, but they were all plays that ultimately we weren't forcing them down the line, right? They were able to come in before even getting to the 18. And so that tells me that, yes, the numbers are there, but ultimately defending is keeping a player out wide. Make them cross. We can deal with crosses all day. Those guys are 6'3", 6'4" in the back. That's no problem, right? It's when they start to come inside that things get disorganized. And Ghana will do that. They'll move you and they'll shake you because they're so unpredictable. And so staying organized defensively is going to be number one for this game.
Okay. Last one, prediction. What do you got for us here? What are you thinking?
I think a 2-1 win for the U.S. I think we'll get back on the right track. I don't think it's a Ghana team that's a world beater. What are they ranked right now?
That's a good question.
Probably, world ranking 60. So on paper, it's a team you should beat, and you should be beating teams that are ranked below you. And proof is in the pudding. If you lose this game, your ranking is going to drop significantly. And I know that the U.S. doesn't want that. So come out and expect a result. I think it'll be a good game in Nashville. A big result can go a long way.
I would love it if they put a bigger number than 2, because Mexico beat Ghana 2-0. So if we can beat it by more than 2-0, that'd be spectacular. I guess we'll see on that. All right, that's all we got for U.S. men's national team. Really quick, finish up with a quick abbreviated rapid fire for you here, because we know, listen, you're a club legend with Seattle, so we know where your allegiances lie. But MLS playoffs are coming up. If you had to pick one club in the East and one club in the West that you'd be worried about if you faced them in the playoffs, who would it be?
I mean, if we're talking the West, Houston is playing really, really good soccer right now. And if you've watched their last, 5-6 results since the Open Cup, I mean, they're piling on goals. They're not playing great teams, but they've gotten some, for some reason, I got a little bugaboo against Houston. But you never want to play a rival either. I don't want to play Portland. I don't want to play Vancouver, because everything flies out the window, no matter what those games are. Honestly, I think the West has some really strong teams. St. Louis is good, but I don't know if they have the playoff savviness to really make a run. But at the end of the day, probably LAFC is probably the best team in the West. I think when they're on, and they're really hard to beat. So of all those, I would probably not want to face LAFC. I think we can get results against the other teams just based on the players that are on our roster. But I think offensively, LAFC can fly when they're on. In the East, I mean, Cincinnati's been lights out this year, and I think that'll be a team to, be fearful of as playoffs approach, and we'll see what they can do. It's my good friend Pat Noonan at the helm there, and they've just played unreal. I mean, Acosta's been lights out, a player who I didn't rate but one that just needed to find the right fit and the right club, and then all of a sudden he blows up. So credit to that team because they were fantastic this year.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So Cincinnati and LAFC, those are the two you're going with. All right. Brad, thank you. Always a pleasure. Always, it's always great to sort of hear what you have to say, especially, you played Germany, you've played, these teams. So
Yeah.
it's a little different. Really, really appreciate it. Always great to have you on. Hopefully come on again for too long.
Yep, no worries, man. I got my Kaye, Nick Ramondo's brand right
Oh
here.
yeah,
Kaye.
nice. I
And
think
I
I
got
wore
my
that last time you were on. Yeah.
yeah, and my State Soccer, Matt Beasler and Seth Sinovich. That's my States gear right here. Check it out
Okay.
online. There's some good stuff, good soccer gear.
Good.
And
Good
casual
plug.
stuff too.
All right. There we go. Kaye and States. Everybody check it out. And that's all we got. See you
All
guys
right.
next week.